Hi, I'm Chairman Oz Nesbitt. Welcome to another segment of Chop It Up with the Chairman. This segment, we are honored to have none other than our own juvenile court judge, Judge Maureen Wood. Judge Wood, welcome to Chop It Up with the Chairman. So glad to have you on board.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, so we were planning and preparing for you to be a part of this segment. You know, we've been doing Chop It Up with the Chairman for about a year now, and we're making our way all the way through Rockdale County, the people, the places, and the players that make this county do what it do. We like to say that we're rocking and rolling in Rockdale County. Chopping It Up with the Chairman is an opportunity to have real candid conversations for you to get a message out and for me to ask you hopefully some of the questions that people want to know about what's really going on at the juvenile court office. I want to start first off by asking you, tell us who is Judge Wood? Tell us who is Judge Wood. You, mom, wife, tell us a little bit about you and your background. Take it away.
All of the above. So I'm originally from Tennessee, actually, Murfreesboro, Tennessee, but I had family members who attended school in the Atlanta University Center. And so around the time when Atlanta, the Olympics, and everything else was going on was when I visited one of my cousins who was at Spelman, and I fell in love, not just with the school in the Atlanta University Center, but just with Atlanta and the surrounding areas. And so I chose to attend school.
Atlanta is where everybody wants to be.
Listen, it's still where everyone wants to be, but when the Olympics and everything was going on, it was definitely the place to be.
Let me interrupt you one more time because I got to just be real with you and tell you, when I'm heading to meetings in Atlanta westbound on I-20, I really wish it was not where everybody wanted to be because traffic is horrendous. I had to say that. I had to get that out. Go back to telling us about you, Judge.
Definitely. I attended school at Spelman, graduated with a Bachelor of Science in Mathematics, and I went to law school at the University of Tennessee, Knoxville. Okay. So I went back to my home state for law school. Met my husband while I was in the AUC. He attended Morehouse, and we both attended Tennessee Law together. We started our family together, and we both moved back here together. He's originally from the area.
Wonderful. And you have how many kids?
3.
3 kids, and their ages?
So one is 19.
Okay.
She is actually a sophomore. She also chose an HBCU, so she is at Howard University. And then I have a 16, soon to be 17-year-old and a 13-year-old.
Wow.
All girls.
All girls. Wow. Judge, I think it's important that as I refer to you by your title, Judge Wood, as our juvenile court judge. First of all, before there was a title, there was Maureen Wood. And again, you are a wife, a mother, and you are a citizen in our community. And I think making sure that people can humanize who our leaders are without first getting blinded by the title. I want to move forward a little bit now and just talk about what does it mean for you to be serving here in Rockdale County?
I love that I'm able to impact my local community. It's where I live. It's where my children go to school. It's where I shop. I've chosen to be here, and I love Rockdale. And so I love that my work directly affects the families in Rockdale.
So let's talk a little bit about juvenile court and what's going on in the world of young people, youth, teenagers, making choices and decisions. I'll start off here. I want to kind of paint a picture a little bit. Across the nation, there's a lot of conversation about youth involvement, youth activity, and particularly youth crime. And people, even in the Atlanta region and even here in Conyers and Rockdale County, we are concerned about our young people making good choices and decisions as they move throughout everyday life. Talk to me and talk to those who are watching this broadcast about how your office and your team approach dealing with the issues and the matters centered around juvenile crime and juvenile involvement in a negative way in our society. What's your philosophy as a judge? What's your approach to tackling and addressing these problems that sometimes seem to be mounting?
I think the first thing I would want to make sure everyone who's watching and listening knows is that juvenile court has a very short window of time to address the young people that come before them. Our jurisdiction is for young people here in the state of Georgia who are under the age of 17. So if it's a day before your 17th birthday and you commit something that's considered a crime, you're going to be treated as an adult. In the adult system, you're going to go to jail with the adults and you're going to be treated that way, and you will have an adult record. So for the young people that I see, those are young people that are 16 and under, and they've made a decision that would be considered a crime as an adult, and we call them delinquent offenses. The juvenile code challenges the court to make sure that we are not just holding young people accountable for the poor decisions that they've made, but we're also putting in services to help them to be rehabilitated. There's no scare you straight. There's no lock you up and throw away the key. There's no super predators. These are our children. Their brains are not fully developed, and what we have to do is we have to make sure as a community we have the programming in place, evidence-based programming. That means that it has been tried and true and it works for young people, that will help young people to get on the right track.
So, Judge, I think there's a lot of people that have the attitude of lock them up and throw away the key. You talked about your philosophy includes proactive and preventive measures, basically rehabilitation. Talk about some of the programs. My office, I'm sure yours get way more than I do, but occasionally I get calls or text messages from parents saying, hey, I need someone to talk to my child. I see that he or she is headed in the wrong direction. They're getting off track. Are there any county programs where we can get our child or our children enrolled and participated in some constructive and productive program? Talk about some of the programs in our area for youth to get them moving in a more positive and productive way. But also there are preventative and proactive measures in place to teach children or young people how to make better choices. Can you speak a little bit about programs that may exist?
Absolutely, and we have so many programs, but they are for youth who are court involved. And so we do see a lot of parents that are wanting to bring their children into the court system for things that would be considered unruly behavior that's unbecoming of anyone, much less a teenager or a child. That doesn't mean they're committing crimes, right? And so I would caution families to come to the juvenile court first. Right? Like it is the court system. That is for young people who have committed something that would be considered a crime if you were an adult. We do have something for young people called CHINS, Children in Need of Services. And that's that group of young people who are unruly, they're truant from school, their behaviors are such that they just cannot be managed and controlled at home. But what the law challenges us as judges to do is to provide community resources to them. So my first challenge to the community is get to know what's available in Rockdale County before you run to the court system, okay?
Judge, I really appreciate you taking a moment and breaking that down and explaining for those young people or families who are not a part of the court system already, there's some options and alternatives for them. One of the things, let me ask this. What about for parents? Teaching parenting skills and parental guidance, because I've run into so many frustrated and emotional parents that says, I can't take it anymore. I've done all I can do. She's driving me crazy. He's driving me crazy. I'm at wit's end. I don't know what to do. Parents are naturally emotionally connected to the problem. Because all of us as parents want to see our children and young people become successful and productive. What do you say to those parents who are at wit's end? And perhaps are there any resources for parenting skills to help cope and understand how to address this new world of young people who were born into technology?
Yes, absolutely. So what I would say is because Any services that we put in place are evidence-based. They are from professionals who have been trained in that area. So you don't have the court clerk or the deputy clerk or the bailiff that's providing parenting. We make sure that we have professionals who are trained in that area and they provide evidence-based programs. What that means is those are the same community programs that are available to young people who are not court involved.
Okay.
So, for example, I would tell those parents, have you looked to see what wonderful things we have in Rockdale County? Because more than likely, that's the same thing we're going to refer your child to, just under a court supervision, right? So Prevent Child Abuse Rockdale, that's a nonprofit that offers parenting, not just for parents with babies and young children, but also parents with teens. They have a wonderful course for that. Also, we have Beyond the Bell. That's another nonprofit. They have a parenting support group. They meet in a community center, and parents love being able to talk with other parents and to process those things. A lot of times, the parenting that parents need comes through individual or family therapy. So a lot of times, we make sure that parents are referred for individual therapists or parenting family therapy that can address some of the parenting. For some of our families who are court involved, we have some evidence-based programs like Triple P Parenting. We also have FFT, but those are for young people who are at medium or high risk. That means medium or high risk. So if you're talking about a child who is just not behaving at home, someone who is not going to school like they should, they would never meet the threshold and be able to participate in a program that is for young people that are at medium or high risk. So come and talk to the court. We have so many community resources that we utilize for families that are struggling. But that doesn't necessarily mean the child needs to be on probation or that the child needs to be detained. That is reserved for young people who have committed what as an adult would be considered a crime. I try to ask the adults to imagine yourself having some challenges and the answer be for society to lock you up. Or the answer be for society to put you on probation and you have to pay court fees and those types of things. That's not the answer to every single thing that's going on. Oftentimes, as an adult, the issues that you're facing, you need help. You need resources. You need support. And you can get those things outside of being under a court order.
Judge, I really appreciate hearing that you have an open door approach and you're saying basically to the community, come see juvenile court, come talk to us. We can point you in the direction of very good resources even before your child or your children end up in a situation. You also went on to say that there's no such thing as a scare them straight type situation. I remember years when I was in law enforcement, people used to say, oh, you see that policeman over there, he's going, well, that's not the kind of thing you want to put in the child's mind, that a law enforcement officer is the big bad wolf. You really want to make sure they understand that's a resource that a person can go to and talk to. And I think that's a little bit of what I'm hearing you say, that there are tons of resources here in Rockdale County. And that, as we know, that there's no book on parenting. There's no how to parent, how to raise a child. I don't care what's out there on the market. The real application is through experience and grow as you go, so to speak, as a parent. Let me shift a little bit again here. When we think about not the national scene, not even what's happening in the region of Metro Atlanta. And as you know, Rockdale County is one of the 11 counties that make up metropolitan Atlanta. Well, let's really zoom in on Conyers and Rockdale County. What are some of the most popular or some of the most frequent crimes, perhaps should I say, that are being committed by youth in our community today? What do you see as trending, should I say?
Okay, that's a good question. One thing that I like to tell people off the bat is for most young people, when they come through the juvenile court system, it's a one and done. They made a poor decision and they get up under whatever the consequences are, the court order, the programming that we put in place for them, and we don't see them again. So that's number one. We don't have a plethora of chronically, delinquent youth running around in Conyers.
Okay.
That's not the case.
That's a good thing.
Yeah, that's a great thing. They make poor decisions. Usually it's one and done. They get the consequences and they come out better than they left. There are young people that we see over and over again, and oftentimes the issues that they experience have a lot to do with trauma, have a lot to do with loss, have a lot to do with inadequate or lack of supervision, lack in the home or in the surrounding. So when you look at young people, just like adults, we are multifaceted. It is not just this is the one issue that created this situation. So for the ones that we see that come through the court over and over again, it's usually so much more that's going on, and we try to load them up and load the family up with services. What I will say is we do a really good job about trying to be a community partner. So last year, towards the end of the year, I saw where a lot of young people were bringing things to school that they really shouldn't have. They weren't being violent, but because someone brought a steak knife in their backpack and another child saw it and reported it, that's a felony, right? For a young person. They're put out of school and they come to the juvenile court. One of the things that I noticed this year is the school system said everybody needs clear backpacks.
That's correct.
And so for all of those cases that it wasn't a matter of a young person harming anyone, it was them making a really poor decision to bring a weapon into the school. The clear backpacks helped with that. I'm not seeing that.
So Judge, this is when I'm going to jump in and with this shift, I'm going to press a little bit, okay? Because I'm a parent. I've got 4 kids. All of them are young adults now, and our last one is in college. However, I have a few questions from the street. There's a big initiative across the country, as everybody is aware, this particular school year as schools began to open up. Rockdale County was not unique to the clear book bags. The questions, the concerns about school safety and the shootings at schools, we've seen a good number of young people involved in these poor choices and decisions, as you stated. What is the message coming from your office to the parents of the kid who brought the steak knife, who brought the gun, who put the gun, even though they didn't cut anybody, stab anybody, shoot anybody, kill anyone? When I'm watching the news report, just like many other people watching the television news, I'm thinking in my mind, what were you thinking? What made you bring the gun? Why did you put the gun in the book bag? And talk about the disconnect with the parent and the child or the children, because somehow there is a disconnect. Can you speak to that a little bit?
So first I want to say that I'm not seeing, and I have not seen, a rash of guns in schools.
Okay.
I want to make that very clear.
Okay.
I have no reason to tell you otherwise or tell the listeners otherwise.
Judge, we believe you.
Now, what I have seen is toys that look like guns. They make them such that they're airsoft pistols, they're pellet guns. If you were to look at those things, they look like they are real.
So if a police officer saw a young person with a gun, with a replica of what appears to be a real gun, in that split second of time, the police officer just doesn't have from a 25-foot distance or 10 feet or 15-foot distance, they don't have the ability sometimes to determine whether it's what folks will say a play gun or a real gun. What do you say about that?
Look at the world that we're living in. It just takes a split second. I really feel like as parents, we just have to recognize that it's a different world than what we grew up in terms of the access that these young people have. Okay. Social media, children are naturally followers. They naturally want to do what the in crowd is doing. So when things are trending and things are happening, a lot of times they want to jump on that.
So a lot of it is copycat.
Yes. Make sure that you see what your child is posting on social media. Even though I haven't seen a rash of cases where young people are bringing real guns to school, check out their social media, who they're hanging with, what they're posting, those types of things. Because we will see cases where they're posting, playing with guns on their Instagram or on their, Snapchat or whatever. And that, of course, is a concern that comes to the court.
Well, I have to say that even a play gun or a replica can certainly pose a major problem for a classroom teacher or a school resource officer because they can't tell the difference. And there could be a terrible tragedy as a result of that. So what I really want to say here to the parents is that to close that gap and that disconnect, we want to encourage parents, and I think you said it in a different way earlier, to be more involved, to talk, to check, to ask questions, and to monitor. And you talked about the influence of social media and the impact that it has on the mindset of young people, because things begin to trend from one neighborhood or one state or one area across another, because some of these things become popular and exciting, but they pose major, dangerous threats, not for just school teachers and resource officers, other students, other kids. And I think sometimes parents miss it until it becomes their child. And what is your message overall, perhaps not just to the parents, but you're the judge of juvenile court, to the young people who are watching this broadcast, what thus says the judge?
I would say it's hard to be a teenager. And as adults, sometimes we forget where we were at that age and some of the choices that we made that weren't the best. But we made it through. A lot of times it was through a lot of prayer. It was through our community support. It was through our church support. It was through our family support. I think parents are doing the best that they can. But I also feel like as parents, we have to recognize that this is not the world that we grew up in. And so we have to make sure that we as a community are doing the things that we can do to embrace these children, to get involved, to stay up to date on what's going on, to make sure that we can impact them in a positive way.
Judge, I really appreciate what you just said and all of that cluster of information, because I'm old school and I came from a world of tough love. I'm an advocate for tough love. But what I've learned in raising my own children, that particularly the two youngest ones, I've got a 34, 33, 23, and 25. But the two younger ones, the tough love just doesn't apply the exact same way maybe as it did with the 34 to 33-year-old. And even in this new world of, I had one of those moms that said, because I said so, and you didn't challenge it and you didn't debate that. But we're in a different climate, in a different atmosphere of young people, and a different world of information. And as you stated, technology has a lot to do with that. And I think it influences the responses. And even though some of those responses that we receive from our young people, as youth way back in the day, we would have never thought to give that response to our parents, or if we thought it, we just didn't have enough courage to say it. How do we help parents make the transition from the time and place in which they once lived under the umbrella of what I just described as tough love, to know that you've got to take a different approach? Talk to me about that a little bit. What do you think those skills are in 2022 versus 1972 and 1982?
I just think that, some things never change. Like, it takes a village, it still takes a village. And no one, it's not a job that one person is expected to be able to do by themselves. It's not, and that's for our single parents. It's not a job, honestly, for just two parents. Like, it takes community, it takes family, it takes educators, it takes making sure that your child is around other positive young people. Get them enrolled in sports, get them enrolled in community activities, Girl Scouts, 4-H, you name it, and you'd be surprised at the difference that you see in your young person. It's not just on you to try to do it alone, because you cannot do it alone.
You're absolutely right. It takes a village, and you just talked about the importance of exposure. You also talked about the importance of social skill development. Because technology is certainly challenging social skill development these days. Parents can be in the same house on one floor, in the basement, on the main floor, and in order to communicate with your children versus a time and place I came from when you hollered all across the house or you yelled all across the house, now you're texting from room to room and riding in a car with a kid. You can't have a wholesome mom, dad, daughter, son conversation because everybody's on social media and they're busy with their technology. That's the world we're in. We've got to stop talking about yesterday and get into the now of how we deal with these issues centered around our young people making good quality choices and decisions. I was pressing you a little bit a while ago, and I want to press you some more. There are a group of people that just don't believe that rehabilitation should be a part of our program to get young people on the right track. I want you to think about that. We're going to go to break. I'm going to come back and we're going to pick that up, but we're going to go to break. Folks, you're watching Chop It Up with the Chairman Oz Nesbitt, Rockdale 23, and we have with us none other than our own juvenile court judge, Judge Maureen Wood. We'll be right back.
Rockdale County is full of amazing employees that continue to dedicate themselves to excellence in customer service. Once a year, Rockdale County recognizes one of our own as Employee of the Year. This employee exemplifies our county's core values on a day-to-day basis. Congratulations to C.G. Baker for his exemplary work in animal services. We hope that you enjoy being a leader within Rockdale County, and once again, congratulations.
Hi, my name is Jason Redmond, Director of Parks and Recreation for Rockdale County, and I want to share with you some of the renovations that we've completed here at 1090 Hardin Street in J.P. Carr Gymnasium. We have upgraded the entire facility to include new interior painting, all new LED lighting, and we replaced the rubber flooring by installing a new shock-absorbing wood floor. The external entry doors were updated and the emergency exit lighting were improved with night lights. And lastly, the building mural was refreshed, keeping the same original design and colors. If you are looking to utilize any of our facilities, call us, follow us on social media, and be sure to download our mobile app. And oh yeah, don't forget about our new Fit for Life campaign in partnership with Living Well Rockdale. Join us as we continue to recreate, or as some might say, recreate, here at Rockdale County Parks and Recreation.
Welcome back. You're watching another segment of Chop It Up with the Chairman. Hi, I'm Chairman Oz Nesbitt. Our guest on this segment is the Honorable Judge Maureen Wood. She's our juvenile court judge here in Rockdale County. Judge Wood, we've been talking about a lot. You've educated us a lot in this segment about really what happens and what goes on in Rockdale County Juvenile Court. You talked about your passion of rehabilitation and teaching and being preventive and proactive and really helping parents to know that there are multiple resources. And you made it real by saying, hey, I'm a parent as well, and that it takes a village to raise children and make sure that they have what they need. I think we were talking about rehabilitation when we went to break, and we talked about the need for more social skill development. And you kind of alluded to the word of exposure, how important it is to expose young people to different things, whether it's extracurricular activities through school. One of the places I spent a lot of my time as a kid was the church. And a lot of churches have church activities for young people to get involved in. Talk about a little bit more about that village and how important that village and the different players in our community are to the work that you and your staff are doing in juvenile court, because you can't do it by yourself.
You cannot. And there's one thing about these young people, they are going to find a way to fill that time. Okay. So as a parent, when you're working and they're at school, we see parents very early on, making sure that the kids are in dance and they're doing the daycare, and after the daycare they're doing the Girl Scouts. But something happens along the way around middle and high school that a lot of parents think, okay, I can be a little bit more hands off.
I can pull back a little bit.
But for these young people, there's still time that they're going to find to feel it. And so we say the school has all of these opportunities, and they do, but for the population that I see, if you've had behavior issues in school, if your grades are not up to par, you're not going to be able to participate in the school sports. You're not going to be able to participate in some of the school programs because of your behaviors, because of your grades not being up to par. So we want to make sure that those young people still have the opportunity to develop those good pro-social skills through those activities. And that's where the community comes in, whether it be recreational programs, whether it be, like you said, all of our local churches, there's so many churches throughout Rockdale County that are doing such good work helping families, making sure that there's something and a resource for young people to be involved there. It's just very important because they're going to find something to do. The question is what? I have young people come to before the court all the time, and I'm asking them because it's time for me to make an order of disposition. We've already adjudicated the case and we know that they have committed whatever the delinquent offense is. And it's time for me to figure out, okay, how am I going to get this kid on the right track? Probation, what kind of plans, 30 days YDC, whatever it is, after the YDC term, what's next for this kid? What is to make sure this kid gets back on the right track? I'll ask them, well, what do you enjoy? What do you do? And they'll say, oh, I want to be an NBA player. Oh, that's great. So what basketball team do you play on? Never played on a basketball team before. Never played in organized sports. Oh, I want to be a rapper. Oh, that's great. Let me hear a rap. Let me hear something that you've done. Vocabulary is this short. Like how you gonna rhyme and your vocabulary?
That's right.
You've never, and so connecting the dots, figuring out what these kids are interested in, and then there are resources in the community. The Boys and Girls Club, they have a whole section for teenagers that has a recording studio and all kind of things there. Parks and Recreation, esports. They've got something for everybody.
Yes.
So there are opportunities there, but somewhere along the way, when these kids get middle school and high school, they're not as involved, and that's really important for them to stay on the right track, for them to have positive activities to be involved in.
A perfect segue for a couple other conversations before we end our segment. You talked about the exposure. I think there's a lot of parents sometimes that they honestly don't know themselves, and there are still mentors out there. Groups like the 100 Black Men of America, they have different chapters. There's sororities and fraternities. You mentioned about the faith-based entity, the churches. There are many different groups out there. Even, I think it's important that we say to parents, hey, don't be embarrassed that you're at wit's end or you don't particularly know. But you gotta be strong enough and willing to make the sacrifice to say, hey, I need some help. And to ask for help and have those conversations with the right people. There's a lot of mind-altering drugs and alcohol involvement that shifts some of our young people in a wrong direction as well. I think some of those things, either as a result of making poor choices or what led up or contributing factors to poor choices. What do you say to that parent who says, Judge, if he can just stop smoking all that weed, if he can just stop doing the biz drinking on the weekend, what do you say to that person?
So if they're court involved, then I have a program for that. We have a Rockdale Juvenile Drug Court program. If they are not in court involved, I would say, once again, look to the community. We have Rockdale Coalition for Children and Families. Their aim is to address young people that have alcohol and substance use disorders. We have several therapists within the community, therapeutic providers in the community. They can do a substance abuse evaluation for your young person and make recommendations for treatment for them. Everything doesn't rise to the level of needing an inpatient treatment program, but for young people, their brains are still developing. And so for young boys, their brains are still developing up until age 25 and 26 years old.
Say that again, Judge.
Yes, for boys, 25 and 26 years old. So the effects of marijuana on the adolescent brain are not the same as for adults. So even for something that, in some of the states we're seeing is being legalized, that doesn't mean it's good for our young people. It has adverse effects on young people even more so than it would on an adult. So it's really important if you identify that you have a young person that is struggling with substance use disorder, or, I tell them all the time, if they come in and I say, if you did a drug screen, would it be positive or negative? And they say it's positive, and I'm saying, you've known for 30 days we're coming to court, and you couldn't have a negative drug screen for me today. That tells me you have a problem.
Judge, you created something, you provoked a lot of thought when you said that, because I often hear from human resource directors and managers when people are coming to apply for job opportunities and they have to take a drug screen. And why would you come to an interview or job application process knowing that you're going to have to take a drug screen and determine whether or not you have drugs, particularly marijuana or any other substance, in your system? It would appear that you would wait and make sure it has completely passed through your system before you go and take up the time of the human resource officers' time in terms of the application process. I think a little common sense, I'm being old school in this moment right here, because I think a little common sense does apply. And parents have to be very candid and open and real and say these exact same things, because if you know your child is smoking weed, then you need to say, now listen, if you're going to apply for that job, you've been smoking weed over the past weekend, you don't need to go and take this job right now or go through this process. You've got to literally say that to those people. And I want to go on record and say this too, because you talked about the leadership by example. And for those parents who call in to us and say, she or he won't stop smoking the weed or the alcohol abuse or what have you. Well, if they're coming into a household that you guys are sitting around the table and you're having a weed festival at your house or on the deck or in the basement, then they think it's okay to do what they see the norm of happening in the environment that they're most influenced by. Is that correct?
It is, and once again, I'm going to point to our community. Listen, I love Rockdale. That's why I live here, and that's why I continue to live here. That's a warning sign that you may have a problem, okay? So there should not be any shame and stigma attached to substance use disorder. It is a disorder. It should be treated just like someone who is a diabetic or someone who has a heart condition, but you cannot ignore it. Once you recognize that you have a problem, what are you going to do to get help? The great thing about Rockdale County, not just for the young people, but also for the adults, we have resources.
Yes, we do.
Stepping Up Initiative, Grit and Grace Community.
Yes.
There for the recovery community to have the support
here in Rockdale
County. So when you have a parent that is struggling with those same issues as the young person is, we have a community where both the parent and the young person can get the help that they need. Once again, it's just a matter of not thinking you have to do it by yourself. And the clue is, if you have a job interview or if you have a court date and you know you're going to be drug screened and you can't stop, that's a clue that you might need to get some help. And it's no shame and it's no stigma attached to it, because if people could do it by themselves, then there wouldn't be a need. There would not be a need. And we want healthy people. We want our community to be healthy. And addiction can ruin your life. It really can.
So, Judge, I want to talk about the parent who's in denial. And I think denial is oftentimes associated with embarrassment, because a lot of times the parents are not really in denial, but they're embarrassed, and they're sometimes severely disappointed that their child or children have chosen the wrong pathway. What do you say to that parent? I think sometimes the world say they're in denial, but I think when we're looking at their heart as parents, I think there's a lot of embarrassment and disappointment. What do you say to encourage that parent who are in those situations emotionally?
Oh gosh, you're not alone. So, as a parent, I cannot imagine, because I think that when we have our children, we have all these hopes and dreams and goals for them. And when things go left, that, when things aren't going the way that we envisioned they would go, naturally there's a little bit of a letdown. Naturally there's embarrassment.
That's right.
Nobody puts on Facebook, I'm going to juvenile court because my kid made this horrible mistake today. And so number one, just recognizing that you're not alone in those feelings, but also just feel empowered to know that that's just the moment that you're in now. And there are resources around you, there's support around you, so that you and your child can be in a better place. You just have to be open and willing to see those changes happen.
I really appreciate you explaining that, because it is a part of the natural reaction for parents. The thing that we don't want to happen is for parents to become enablers. And I think that in some scenarios that parents can be part of the problem by enabling a young person, by catering to some of those bad choices and decisions, by some of the most simple things that seem very innocent at times. And is there anything you could say about that? Because there have been cases of parents just seem to just not accept that this young person is headed in the wrong direction, and you can call it denial, disappointment, embarrassment, but truly some parents become enablers.
I don't know, you got to see it before you can change it in terms of the behavior itself. My suggestion for those parents will be to get some help. And when I'm talking about help, I mean like maybe some professional help in setting boundaries. A therapist will work wonders in terms of just running certain things by someone else that you're going through. Sometimes it's a matter of not setting healthy boundaries. Sometimes it's a matter of not being viewed by the child as being the decision maker or being the enforcer in the household, thinking that you want to be friends. And so there are certain things that sometimes people need help with, either because they didn't have that example themselves, or because somewhere along the way they've lost the way. It could be just from, maybe being alone in the process of parenting and having to rely on a child to help parent younger siblings. Children come to the court all the time. They're very parentified. It's very hard to tell a child what to do when they've been serving in the role of the parent. And so I feel like we keep on going back to this same conversation of you're not alone as a parent.
That's right.
You just have to figure out, you just have to figure out who your support is, and it's there. It really is there. You have to build that support because you're not alone. It's hard because once you get in that habit of being an enabler, like how do you change? I think you might need some professional help. I think you might need someone to help you set boundaries, help you see how those are negative behaviors and they're impacting your child.
So, Judge, you've given us a lot of food for thought during this segment. I tell you, how do people get Judge Wood, the Honorable Judge Maureen Wood, to come out to their church, their nonprofit group, the Boys and Girls Club, their HOA? How do you get out to the schools or the local churches and have a conversation, a candid conversation, a fireside conversation with the Honorable Judge Wood about juvenile court here in Rockdale County, a little bit of the do's and don'ts, and giving those nuggets? You gave a lot of golden nuggets to parents. How do they get a hold of you with getting involved in the community where you can take your message out on the street and campaign on behalf of keeping Rockdale County the best county in the state of Georgia and supporting our youth?
Okay, so I think I was like everyone else for a minute, but I'm back outside now. So I will say that it might have been harder to get me a couple years ago. But we're back outside. I will say that. So just give me when I say give me a call the office, and I can certainly set something up. I would be happy to come out and speak to the sororities, the fraternities, the churches, your community organizations, whether it's Zoom or in person. I'm just here to try to help affect change in our community. I definitely feel like there are things that I could offer in terms of question and answer about what's actually going on, right, as opposed to, the perception. I think people would be surprised to know that we're really in a good position. We really have some good kids. Yeah, they make poor choices, but if they come through the court, they will be held accountable. And hopefully they'll come out of it better than they came in.
Judge, I can't thank you enough. We really talked about so many things as it relate to what's happening in our country and our region here in Rockdale County. You continue to champion the cause and remind me and everybody watching this broadcast, we've got some good things happening in Rockdale County, and not to throw the baby out with the bathwater. You talked about all of the resources, and it takes a village to be able to do the work we need to do to steer, lead, guide, and mentor our young people in the right direction. And then you told us how to get a hold of Judge Wood. If you want to get a hold of Judge Wood, you can dial our switchboard operator at 770-278-7000 and ask for juvenile court. Running on the screen right now, you can see a direct number that'll get you straight through to Judge Wood's office, and she can you can make an appointment and schedule, or perhaps make a request. Is that right, Judge? To have you come out. We like to say, when you make the schedule, please don't call at the last minute. Or don't call in a moment of your frustration, but please give her an opportunity to go out. I really appreciate your level of community involvement, because you're not just the judge that shows up with the robe on to adjudicate these cases, but at the same time, you're involved in what's happening. You live, you're part of the fabric of Rockdale County and the community as a whole, but you're offering your time and your talent to make a difference, Judge Wood, by going out, as you stated, to the churches, to nonprofits, and the community organizations, so they can hear directly from you. What are your lasting words to this audience of folks who are watching, parents as well as young people? What do you say to them in your closing? I've got a few more things as we wrap up, but I want to give you an opportunity to give your lasting. What do you want people to remember about this segment, and the most important impact that you're having with sharing with us with Chop It Up with the Chairman this afternoon?
I would just say we've got some great things going on in the juvenile court. Our success has a lot to do with our programming. We offer programming at our day reporting center for young people that have been suspended or expelled from school. We also have an evening reporting center where we offer supervision and programming there. We have multiple accountability court programs, therapy, family therapy. We also have parenting. So we have a lot to offer. The most impactful, or the program that has the potential to be the most impactful for our young people, is our mentoring program. So if you don't necessarily have a young person who's coming through the system, but you want to figure out how you can make a change and how you can be a part of that change, call the juvenile court and say you want to help mentor a young person. We have a need, especially a need for male mentors, but we have a need, because I do believe just that community involvement piece just has the potential to really change the lives of a lot of young people that come through the court.
Judge Woods, I really appreciate that. You talked about the need for mentors, and you expounded on the need for male mentors. So to all of the men out there in our community, and you have some available time, or you're willing to make a sacrifice to be a mentor to a young person, there's a great need, particularly for mentors, but more importantly for male mentors. So Judge Wood, what motivates you to do the work that you do every day on behalf of the young people and the parents and the families in Rockdale County?
So I guess when I see young people come to the court, I don't see a thug. I don't see a criminal. I see somebody that could be my nephew or my son. And so it's important that they have the tools that they need to be successful. So that's my motivation.
Very good. Folks, you've been watching another segment of Chop It Up with the Chairman. Our guest on this segment has been the Honorable Judge Maureen Wood from Juvenile Court here in Rockdale County. We talked about so many things and resources that are available for our young people and our parents in Rockdale County. We talked about the fact that Rockdale County is a loving, caring, and very compassionate community all the way in the court system, and we believe in rehabilitation. Thank you for watching another segment of Chop It Up with the Chairman on Channel 23.